On this episode, we're interviewing Chuck Lehman, who happens to be Andy's father and the owner of a mean 3-bean casserole recipe.
You're listening to the Dudes and Dads Podcast, a show dedicated to helping men be better dudes and dads by building community through meaningful conversation and storytelling. And now, here are your hosts, Joel DeMott and Andy Lehman.
Hey, welcome, Dudes and Dads Podcast listeners. I'm Joel, here with my good friend, Wandy Wayman.
I thought it was Chester.
Chester T. Lehman.
Wait, it's been a while since we pulled that name out.
We have. That goes way back.
It does. Back to the beginning episodes. You should listen to that. Like, I think the very first episode, right?
Chester T. Lehman.
Yeah.
Does your dad know that you secretly wanted to be named Chester?
I don't know. We can ask him later. during the pop quiz, we'll ask him and see what he thinks.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. Hey, everybody. Good to be back with you. We've started. We've stopped. We've started again. We've been
vacationing.
We have been
fake news vacationing.
In the mitten. We've been both
of us.
Both smitten with the mitten, as we like to say.
I have to admit that I do now, after being in the upper part of Michigan,
yes,
like it a whole lot more than I used to.
It's a magical place up there. It gets remote, and your cell phone doesn't work.
Right. No offense to those in the lower, like Jones area, Daniel.
Yeah, you trolls, you know who you are. Yes. So we are back. And, just a big, by the way, thank you to all of you that are sticking around with us. And we're looking forward to, we're close to the fall months, Andy.
We are.
Would you know what that means? We get to
snow,
pumpkin spice. I think that's what that means.
We should just let people alone that like pumpkin spice this year.
It should be this year should be like Corona spice, which I don't know what Corona spice tastes like, but it makes you cough. So that's the gist.
Oh my!
That's a real marketing ploy.
Yes.
Oh, Andy, how about you tell us what's going on?
Hey, I would love to do that.
Now it's time for the Dudes and Dads Pop Quiz.
Whoa!
It's been so long. Wrong one.
You've reprogrammed that beast.
Yeah, wrong one. Here, how about this one?
What's brewing? What's brewing? What's brewing? What's brewing?
Well, I mean, really, you already mentioned mine. Mine was that I was on vacation this last week, and it was really good.
What did you do?
Went to Michigan. No, we did a lot of things. We went to the beach. We went to way up there, Whitefish Point. We know that Whitefish wave.
They never point.
Right, according to Joel's fake news.
Yep.
But no, we did a lot of fun stuff, hanging out with the family and eating lots of great food and stuff.
Were you camping?
No, we had rented a house.
Which is the wise choice. We camped while we were up there, and the weather was good for like 75-80% of the time we were there, but at the very beginning, it torrentially downpoured for a full day. So, we did like good campers. We went 2 miles down the road to the casino hotel and stayed overnight there because I had enough. And I had small children with me. And there's nothing better, Andy, as you know, than being trapped in a slightly wobbly tent with 4 young kids.
Right. Tell me, though, Joel, I do see tonight that you are wearing different glasses.
Thank you for pointing that
out.
So
what? Tell me the story about why you're not wearing your normal glasses.
Glad you noticed. So here's what happened last night. I decided to take Aaron and Josiah and Matthew out to the ball field for a little, end of season practice. We've got one more tournament. I don't know. I'll tell you about the whole tournament thing later. It's we thought our baseball season was done, and then the Little League was like, hey, congratulations, you won your last game. You get to play other Little Leagues now. And we're like, oh, really? That sounds
interesting.
Oh, it's just keeps on going. So out at the ball field, a little practice, and I made an unsafe choice. And you know how we're always talking to our kids about making wise, safe choices. You don't play with fire, don't play with knives, blah blah blah. Joel decided, hey, I'm gonna have Aaron wanted to pitch to Josiah, and I was like, hey, I'll just climb here behind the plate and catch these balls. No problem. We're doing along just fine. Josiah takes a swing, does one of those foul ball straight back at the catcher scenarios.
Oh, no.
Cracked me right on the left eye, but like hit my glasses. But hit my glasses and then went up. So listen to the story now. It's way funnier. So split my eyebrow open, so I was bleeding, and like I'm like laying on the ground, like just like, oh, I cannot believe this just happened. It hurt decent. It would have been way worse if I had not had my glasses on, but it hit my glasses so hard it broke my glasses in two, took the lens out of the thing. But I have two small little bruises on the top of my nose because the glasses went back so hard against my nose.
Man.
They like bruised the bridge of my nose, and so I'm laying on the ground in momentary pain. Like I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna get through this. Whatever, it's gonna be fine. Aaron, like the eldest child that he is, picks up my cell phone and calls my wife right away.
Oh no!
Now, I would not have called my wife. I would not have mentioned that any of this actually even happened. Whatever. We could have discussed it when we got home, maybe. This is what Aaron says to Jackie. Yeah, Dad's laying on the ground. He's bleeding from his face.
Oh no!
You need to come get us. and so, like when I come to my senses or whatever, I'm like, what did you say to Mom? He's like, Mom's coming. She's coming to get. I'm like, we don't need Mom to come. I just like dabbed the blood off my face with a moist towelette.
Right.
And so I called Jackie back. I'm like, I'm fine. She's like, your glasses are broke right now. And I was like, yeah. It's like, I can still drive. I was like, I can drive. She's like, no, I don't know, because your vision, you are able to function without glasses. Jackie would be blind. And she's like, if I broke my glasses, we would not be going anywhere.
Do it.
So it's like, no, it's not a problem. So like a true father, I dusted the dirt off my face.
Went on.
And I did not climb back behind the plate, but we continued on with our little practice. Nice. So these are my backup glasses. I've got a little bit of a swollen eyebrow and some small weird bruises on the top of my nose.
Well, thanks for sharing.
Oh my gosh, the things we do for our children. But
well,
anyway.
Before we get into tonight's episode, I would like to thank Brian Kirby. Brian is a new patron of the show.
Brian, we love you. We
yes.
are appreciative of you. Thanks for being willing to put your name on the wacky thing that we call the Dudes and Dads podcast.
Yes, and so we thank him. And if you want to join him, you can go to dudesanddadspodcast.com/support. There's a couple different ways you can give there, but Patreon is great because you get behind the scenes stuff. And we are going to actually be recording a whole new. For tonight's episode, we are actually chatting with my dad.
Yep.
He is here in studio with us.
Yep.
And we're going to go Joel's going to basically throw me under the bus and ask a bunch of random stuff about me.
Excited.
So
excited.
If you want to know more about me and the other stuff that I've done as a child.
The deep, seedy past.
You can become a Patreon too and find that out.
That's right. We don't accept Bitcoin. I just put that on the record. But
right.
Everything else
is
fine.
So, anyways, Chuck Lehman, welcome to our show tonight.
Glad to be here.
Oh, Chuck, he's got a real voice for radio too, which is good.
Yes.
I don't know if he's ever like really thought about going into mass communication, but
if he
wanted to,
he could.
Now's the time.
Right.
I think
good backup.
This could be a good backup, good fallback plan. Yes.
When all else doesn't work.
Oh yeah. Chuck, good to have you with us. Yes, thank you
for
being here. Chuck joins us all the way from the bustling metropolis of it's Martinsville, is it not? Yeah, Martinsville. Yep. Came up just for the show. That's how much your dad loves you, Andy.
Right. I know. In fact, I originally, when we asked him to be on the show, I just planned on having him on the phone, and
he was like, I won't have it.
No,
I will not have it. I'm
there.
Getting in the car and heading up.
So welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit. We always do the dad stats. We ask people, your wife, kids, all that good stuff.
How long you been married?
I mean, I think I know your son pretty good. But
yeah, what you do? All that. Yeah, give us all the information.
All right. Been married coming up on 44 years.
44 years.
Met my wife, Becca, in the restaurant business, making 3-bean salad.
I knew yes. It all comes around.
Yeah. 48 years ago, met her.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we dated for 4 years, got married. And soon after, Andy came on the scene, and then Emily, his sister. And they have grown up very well and married into some really nice families, Christian families. And I have 8 grandchildren I'm very proud of as well.
Yeah.
And so currently, previously, I was in the cabinet design business for quite a few years. And
with a name like Lehman, you have to.
Yeah, that's right. Except for I was in Chicago.
Yeah, I know. It makes no difference. You got to be a carpenter.
So, and then currently, we are in the retreat ministry, teaching people about the importance of rest.
And that's what we're going to talk about tonight, because it's a It's something that, well, I think Chucky would say is it should be a non-negotiable in
Guaranteed.
life. Yes. So Chuck is one of those people that so you guys have been, because I know you, before you were doing what you're doing currently, or at the place you were doing it, you've been in sort of the retreat business, so to speak, for
since 2003.
Yeah. So since I graduated high school 17 years ago. And so what I guess, let's just ask, what attracted you, or how did you find yourself in that kind of ministry role? What attracted you to it? How did it come about?
Well, what attracted me is I tried it the other way.
Okay.
Yeah. It just didn't work. I tried it for a long time the other way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In that cabinet business, it was not unusual for me to come home on a Friday afternoon, and by the time I go back to work Monday mid-morning, I would have had 40 hours behind the computer screen.
Yeah.
And that went on for a lot of years. Andy can attest to that. And so Andy has said a couple of things that encouraged me to move that direction. The first one is one time when he was very young, he called me in the room. I hadn't been home to see him for like 4 days. While he was up. And he called me in the room. He said, "Dad, turn on the light." I said, "What's up?" He said, "I just want to see your face. I don't remember what you look like."
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so that was kind of the beginning of the change early on. Yeah. And then one time when Andy was about 10 and Emily was about 8, they came into the room. This was when Becca was fighting stage 3 cancer. Mm-hmm. They said, "Hey, Dad, where's Mom?" And I said, "Back there." "Why?" And they said, "Well, we have a question about something in the Bible, and we need an answer we know we can count on." And what the kids plainly saw was I wasn't the spiritual leader of the house, and I wasn't the one that was going to give them the right answer, because I wasn't spending any time in the Bible. I wasn't resting. I wasn't spending any time away from trying to better my career.
Mm-hmm. So, you had these. Was there a I mean, were those your definitive wake up moments? Or was this like a series of events, or
it was a series of events?
Yeah, and so one day you said, "Enough of this."
Yeah, a couple of things happened. I kept realizing then that I needed to be the spiritual leader, so I started spending more time with God. I spent a substantial amount of time starting to do reading in the morning. I opened up my Bible again for the first time, and started doing some fasting. It started really trying to draw away and retreat with God, and so one of the other turning moments was when Andy came to us one day and said, "Hey, I'm not going to be eating for 2 weeks starting next week, and I'm going to be fasting for a friend of mine that's going on a short-term mission trip." And I said, "Hey, that's great. I'll join you." And as I read about that, I was compelled to do a 40-day fast. And it was in that 40-day fast that God changed everything. Wow. I realized that, it was fun selling cabinets and I was making money, but there wasn't satisfaction in that. It wasn't anything of lasting value. And so during this 40 days, as I went without food and Beck and I spent time praying together, we realized that He was calling us into a ministry where we could teach people about some of the lesser-known spiritual disciplines like Sabbath rest, a rhythm of Sabbath, and fasting and prayer.
So what was your first step into the retreat ministry? What was the first thing that you guys did?
We did a lot of praying, saying, "God, it's your call. You're going to have to make it happen.
Yeah.
We don't know where to start." And so he did open up the fast was in June of 2002. In the fall, in August of 2003, we had an opportunity to join an existing ministry in southern Indiana. And it was in a log cabin. They mainly did weekend group retreats. And we were there for 3.5 years. And God kept tugging on our hearts that there had to be more, that group retreats are great, but we needed to keep the place more busy 24/7 and do personal retreats, get people in to where they were hanging out with God and letting God meet them where they were at.
So following that, what was your, because you were at a camp for a while,
right,
which is what I am trying to go back to my mind.
Yeah.
And I just remember the best. Where was that camp? I don't
that
even
was
remember. I
in
remember
Kokomo
now.
area.
Kokomo
yeah.
area. Okay, yeah. Because I've got a good picture with Aaron, who was all of maybe
like 2 or something.
Not
like,
even maybe
yeah.
that, going down the zip line, looking terrified. So basically began that journey and are now so you're now at Shepherd's Gate down in Martinsville. How long that seems like that has just flown by, but how long has that been now?
We're coming up on our 10th anniversary.
My goodness.
Yes.
It's like I just feel like saying like it seems like only yesterday that was happening, but man, 10 years, that's wonderful.
So
yeah,
let's talk a little bit about Shepherd's Gate Inn here. So you moved from your retreat center that you were, or the retreat place that you were working in Southern Indiana. You moved in the meantime, did the camp thing there
for about another 3.5 years.
And then God opened up some doors, and you ended up in Martinsville. How did that happen? Talk to me about that a little bit.
It was crazy. It was through another 40-day fast, and it was during that fast that seemed like things weren't really happening too much. But what was happening is God was working behind the scenes, and so right at the end of the fast, I get an email I'm not supposed to get, and I had been trying to get off this email list for 1.5 years. I was placed on it mistakenly. And I had never looked at them. And this time I felt I needed to. And when I opened it up, it showed a picture of the place that is the Shepherd's Gate Inn. It was a private residence before, and it said Elegant Country Estate to be sold as a retreat facility in Martinsville, Indiana. And I was really amazed by it. I kept looking at it and go, this is perfect. 43 heavily wooded acres, 11,500 square feet, fully furnished, sitting vacant, ready to move in. A barn full of all the equipment you could want. Right. Everything's perfect.
Not even believable.
Until you get to the price tag. I'm like, no, it's not that perfect. Right. and I'm going to close out of it, but I can't do it. My hand's nailed to the table. Mm-hmm. And so I do what any wise man would do. I sent the link to my wife and let her deal with it.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah, and so that's how we found out about the place, and like 5 days later, we toured it, and at the end of that month, I had an opportunity to preach down in that area. We asked, hey, since you're not living in the house, could we stay in it for a few days and then talk to you about all the finances and stuff? So we did. We met the husband. At that time, the wife had given us the first tour, and it was 40 days after that they allowed us to move in, and took care of paying all the bills for us, and continued to carry us for over 18 months until we were able to get into a lease agreement with them. So it's like a crazy, unexplainable, couldn't make it up, couldn't write it or think it even, God events.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what you do at the inn. What are some of the things that you offer there?
Yeah, we do a lot of work at the inn.
Well, yeah.
I was prompted to tell Becca one time, I said, I think we should change the motto of the ministry to Rest Ministries. We don't, so you can.
We don't, so you can.
But what we do is we give people a place to get away and hang out with God. A lot of people have such a foreign idea because it's so counterculture. It's not what's taught to us, and especially men. We are our identity is in what we do and what we can accomplish, how well we take care of the family. And so it just goes against everything. But what we try to do is teach people about the need for rest, for Sabbath break, there's a lot of different names you can throw at it, but we give them a place. We have 7 guest rooms, all very elegantly decorated. We will meet with the people, we'll pray with the people, and we will do either group retreats or personal retreats. And so the group retreats are structured differently. People come in, we meet with them, pray with them. We give them the opportunity to have a personal retreat toolkit that teaches them how to do retreat, gives them some ideas. And then we set them on their way. We take care of them. They have an evening meal where all the personal retreat guests get together. And then we have a refrigerator and a second kitchen and a guest kitchen in the lower level, and they're on their own for their own breakfast and lunch. We have a lot of homemade things we put in the freezers so they can have their meals at any time and not be on a schedule.
Let me just interrupt you here real quick. I'm not going to brag. Oh, I will brag.
Should.
He is an amazing cook.
Yeah, and we were joking about the 3 big casserole, but it's actually
it's really good. Like he'll go there and you won't leave hungry. Like his food is really good. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you,
That's all
but
right.
I just felt like I
You
needed
need to plug the food, though. That's
right,
important.
it's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we were at a celebration dinner one time, and we were interviewing a guy and said that we asked the question, well, you're a repeat guest. Why do you come back all the time? And somebody in the audience said, the food.
Totally acceptable.
So we, and for group retreats, we will do a full meal package for them. There we don't meet with them and pray with them. They usually have their own thing going, but we also, so we do the full meal package for them. We take care of them, clean up after them. And then we also offer the services of a spiritual director who's trained in spiritual direction. He's not directly on our staff, but he's a contracted guy that works for us, and he's also a trained counselor and pastor, so he can take you as deep as you need to go. And we have a lot of people that use his services.
He's also an Enneagram guy.
Yeah, he's an Enneagram guy. He can look at you and tell you what you are.
You feel very 3-ish to me. Yeah, good. So in your time in retreat ministry, because you brought this up, and we're the Dudes and Dads podcast. We talk a lot about guy stuff and being a father and all of that. In the circle, I mean, obviously, I as a pastor am way overdue for a retreat, and so I'm going to be calling your dad up here anytime now. I should say our church here at Clinton Frame gifted all of us pastors with a 2-day retreat down at Shepherd's Gate, and I'm going to be scheduling my time here soon. But as I think about the men that are in my life, whether it's people I coach with or like outside, I don't know any of them that have maybe ever gone on any sort of retreat whatsoever or have any time kind of away. They've maybe done vacations or whatever, but and I'm thinking of people that are from a non-Christian standpoint, when you talk about taking a retreat, that sounds weird, but I think even for people I know that are believers, like that, the retreat concept is a pretty foreign one, particularly to men. What for you would say it's a non-negotiable to live life fully. How do you enter into the conversation with men that are maybe resistant to the idea of the need? And because I know it's maybe something that you don't feel you can like convince people of, but there's definitely a conversation that we can have to encourage, I would think.
Yeah, and for us, it usually goes back to biblical principles. We talk about 2 teachings in the Bible that are really the centers of Sabbath, and that's what retreating is. That's what resting is. And one says, "Remember, you were once slaves to Egypt, and I delivered you by my strong arm and my mighty power. Therefore, remember the Sabbath, keep it holy." And what Moses was telling the Israelites, what God was telling the Israelites through Moses, he wanted them to stop every 7 days and rest for the purpose of remembering who God is and what he's done. And that sounds kind of odd, but what it really does when you look at it is it first of all drives us to worship, because when we remember how God has revealed himself, anytime God reveals himself in the Bible, people fall flat on their face in uncontrollable reaction. And so when we remember how he's revealed himself, it drives us to worship. And that in turn sets a fertile ground, an invitation for God to do something miraculous, because miracles are oftentimes preceded in the Bible by prayer and by worship and by thanksgiving. And then the other thing that we find very valuable is it bolsters our faith. We have said countless times, we believe you can't move forward unless you're looking back. And you can't have time to look back if you're always busy chugging forward. And so we need our faith bolstered. We need to remember how God has shown up in the past. And the second teaching says God created the heavens and the earth and the seas and everything that's in it in 6 days. On the 7th day he rested, therefore he ordained it as a holy day for us to rest. And if you'd ask most people, how long did it take God to complete creation, after hearing that, they'd say 6 days. But we firmly believe that creation really wasn't complete until God created rest on that 7th day. And when you look at it in that light, it's like, well, this is really important, because 1/7 of all creation was dedicated for that purpose of rest, creating it and enjoying it. And it's not because God was tired. It's not because Adam's tired. He's only a day old. So there's 2 purposes there. One is that it was for man to rest in the presence of the Creator, enjoy creation, have that fellowship that we were created for. That was the reason the garden was created. But the other reason was to fix some holes in Adam. Adam had some holes in him, and it was time that God to come in and fill those holes. And what I mean by that is Adam didn't know how to work the garden. He didn't know how to be a good husband or father. He didn't know how to do those things that God had planned for him. So it was in that time together that God could prepare him for what's ahead.
Yeah.
So when you look at rest in that way, it's like, how do I not want to do it? I want my faith bolstered. I want to be driven to worship. I want to invite miracles, and I want God to prepare me for what's ahead.
Yeah.
And it's in those rhythms of Sabbath, I think, that really it gives everything else in life meaning.
I'm always just for a quick theology nerd comment. I'm always intrigued by on the seventh day. It doesn't follow. So throughout the days of creation, and there was evening and there was morning. The first day, second day. It doesn't say that on the seventh day. That the seventh day and its Sabbath just goes forward into creation. Rabbi Abraham Heschel points this out in one of his commentaries, and I think in it's an idea that's understood in Middle Eastern culture, I think, a lot better than our Western go get them, accumulate, do more, and then die early.
Yeah.
Crash and burn.
Right. Well, and I think that's really what you ask us, what drew us into this. I think that was it, because what God was planning on our heart is to be a proactive ministry, a proactive retreat ministry. There's a lot of retreat ministries out there that wait till you crash and burn, and then they give you a place to rest, they brush you off, shove you out the door, and let you do it again. And we feel that it's much better to have a rhythm of Sabbath in our life, and it's out of that Sabbath rhythm and hanging out with God that then we can do forward and do His work, and it's working out of His power, not our power. And when we do it out of our own strength, it's pretty puny. We end up trying to spend a lot of time convincing God to bless what we've done or fix what we've messed up, and it usually ends up in crash and burn, and that has so much damage in its wake. Whether it be, the guy on the street, not in a church setting, or if it's just a Christian that's in the pews, but it's especially damaging when it happens to people in leadership in a church, and that's unfortunately some of the worst offenders because they're called, and they're driven, and they're passionate, and so how do you stop that? But it's like you don't drive your car without maintenance. You don't. We know those things. But sometimes the things we know the best get pushed to the back.
Yeah, is there would you make, from what you've seen and what you've experienced, because I'm guessing you've seen I've heard a lot of stories that have come through the door and people that have walked some, just some interesting journeys through life. Is there a commonality amongst many of the stories as far as what led people to your ministry, what led them to the place where they are now? Is it a common? Would you say that there are some symptoms that are identifiable where it's like you need to get yourself on retreat? If someone were to kind of take an inventory of themselves, so to speak.
I think a lot of times people find themselves, it's just all of a sudden you wake up and you realize I'm depleted. I'm depleted physically, I'm depleted emotionally, I'm depleted spiritually, I'm depleted mentally. And what happens is you start to get kind of a flat line, and your emotions go flat, your feelings go flat, you can't make decisions. And I think that sometimes scares people into coming. I think sometimes people push past that. It's either that, or oftentimes it's a reaction. There's something big coming up in their life. There's a big change, and they want to do something about it. But what we enjoy is when we can walk those people through it, and they can see that there's a rhythm that's important. And if they get that rhythm in life, it's what gives everything else in life meaning. The work of our hands, our ministries, our relationships with our family, our spouse, and everyone else that we come in contact with, all is bettered because we come out of rest.
So not everyone is going to be able to come to Martinsville, obviously. I think that's great. I've been there. I've been on personal retreat there, not just hang out with you, but I've been on a personal retreat there. I would definitely recommend it, but not everyone can make it down to Martinsville.
Right.
What are some of the practical things that people can do outside if they don't have a place like Rest Ministries and Shepherd's Gate Inn to come down to, or to come to? What are some of the things that they can do to retreat?
Yeah, it's a good question, because they don't have to come to us to retreat. The important thing is they're getting away and they're retreating. Got a friend that he occasionally just goes to the hospital, hangs out in the chapel because it's a quiet place. There's free coffee, food's cheap, and it's usually a place that he can hang out with God, and it's shutting off the normal stuff of what goes on in life, and it's allowing God to talk to him. And he can do that quickly. It's a day. It doesn't cost him anything, and occasionally gets a chance to minister to people. But it's all about being intentional. We do quarterly retreats. Every quarter we get away 3 to 5 days. It's just part of who we are. It's that rhythm. And so it's, sometimes we'll go to Mississinawa Reservoir, get a cabin. Sometimes we'll go to a KOA. The most recent time was a KOA campground, just 20 miles from our place. We have a friend that has a summer cottage, and they said, use it. It's a cottage on the lake. It's 2 miles from our house, but it's
away.
Yeah,
you can unplug.
Yeah, it's intentional, and it's this idea of going in and hitting life's pause button. And so it can be a variety of different things. It can also be a more weekly rhythm for us because we live where we work and we have guests in the house 315 days last year. It's important because we could work 24/7,
right?
And that doesn't work. And so we intentionally have Saturday night is a earlier meal, and we go to our church as an evening service. We do an evening service. We say, let the Sabbath begin, and then come home, and we just prepare and anticipate the next day, which is our Sabbath. And we don't do an evening meal that night. We have a later check-in. We don't do things that empty. We do things that fill. We do things you get to do and not things you have to do. And we'll eat. We'll take a nap. We'll go fishing sometimes. Beckler putt around in the garden. We just do things that fill. We call family and have conversations with them. And it's just a time of being filled and blessed.
I think that's an important thing to remember too, like on Sabbath and resting, there are things that you get to do, not that you have to do. Because I think that those everyday life things, especially when you're at home, just like it's hard to unplug. And I think that that's a key thing, what you said there, is you get to do some things that just recharge you as a person. And
it's a day that we feast. We'll do a meal for us privately that we wouldn't normally do for guests. Last week we found 4 lamb chops for $7, and we put them on the grill and had lamb, and it's something to look forward to. It's that idea of feasting on God, feasting on food.
So you mentioned we've talked about some kind of the individual components of retreat and rest and Sabbath. What does Sabbathing and retreating and resting have to say for our marriages? Because as you mentioned, both you and Becca are going. You're being intentional together to do these things. How can a couple retreat together? What might that look like for folks?
Yeah, for us, about 95% of our retreats have been that way. Our Sabbaths. We've had a few where we've done separate things. But most of the time, we'll go to a place. We'll look up retreat centers, or campgrounds or whatever, and we'll go there. And Becca always is pulled to the front porch if it's warm, and I'll usually go for the lazy chair and to kick it up, and we'll we'll listen to God. It's always different for both of us, and most of the time we're on different reading routines. But God, we'll get together at the mealtime and we'll say, "What's God teaching you?" And it's like, He's bringing us the same scriptures. He's speaking to us, and it really does, because as you draw closer to God, it really does draw you closer to your spouse.
Right.
I mean, you can't do it otherwise.
Right. Julie and I have done that. We went last time we went to their house on a retreat. We were together. We just kind of hung out in the room most of the day, and she was reading stuff, I was reading stuff separately, and we would come together and talk about it again, like you were saying there. But we kind of do our own thing. But yeah, it was definitely interesting to see what God was teaching us. But that's how we did it when we were doing it.
Yeah, and some of my best. I mean, with Jackie and I, some of our best conversations are when, we intentionally remove ourselves from all the distractions and the what feel like very necessary things at the time that are around us. Obviously, our beloved children are always part of that equation. And I think just having the ability, yeah, for none of that noise to be there, so to speak, makes you get real honest with each other. And again, I think, I mean, how many times, I know I'm guilty of this, like, do we inadvertently hide behind the business of our family life so that we don't have to talk with each other?
Mhm.
I just have this, sometimes every once in a while, Jackie said this the other night, the kids were trying to get the kids to bed or whatever, and Jackie said, I need to have an adult conversation with your father, so please go. And I'm like, you're right, because we haven't talked as two adults for how many ever days now that it's been. We've been managing together, having managerial meetings, but maybe not talking as a couple and sharing like what's on our heart, where our heart is really at. And so sometimes if you just if you put yourself in a place where you don't have access to all of those things, I'm also wondering, what do folks do with their cell phones when they come visit you?
It depends on their service.
Yeah.
If they got Sprint, they just don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but our service is really lousy up there,
Yeah.
and most people intentionally turn it off and give them our number. Say if there's an emergency, call
Yeah.
Chuck and Becca. But yeah, and there's no distractions like TVs, and it forces people to go out and walk in the woods and be spoken to by God's creation, and to feel that closeness. And the amazing thing is when we draw away, God accomplishes about 10, 12 times more than what we could cram into a week, in just a day. And it's just amazing how aware we become, how our senses are heightened, and we're experiencing God in the things we hear and the things we smell and taste. And it's just amazing when you remove those distractions.
Andy, I think back to years ago when we were up in Grand Rapids at the Dominican Center when we did our retreat.
Yes.
Now, when you said taste, your senses and everything like that really drove home with me. Myself, Andy, Matt, and Brian, the four of us, went on a retreat up there, and a lot of time alone, but had one evening meal together. We went to this. We always have to make sure.
Say it slow when you say this.
So the name of the restaurant up in Grand Rapids is Sanchez, but it's a tapas, Tapas. People think we're saying topless all the time. It was a tapas restaurant, not a topless
small
restaurant.
portion.
Yeah, small plates. And we had just really spent some very intentional time in reflection and went out to have a meal together. And the restaurant is phenomenal. The food is wonderful there, but like the experience of eating together in the midst of that, like I felt like I'm not being weird here, like tasted food like better than I normally do. There was a fullness to it that that really stuck with me. Just like that I perceived and received things in a very different way following that. And I can't say I've really actually had an experience like that since then, which means we just need to go and do it again now.
Right. No, but I would say even the same thing for when I've been at Rest Ministries and in Shepherd's Gate Inn, and like when we eat together, it is it's interesting. That's good because you do get to see other people who are also deeply doing their own thing, but then come together for the meal. And it's you would think that it'd be, you wouldn't want to because you're trying to be alone, but it almost is something comforting when you're there visiting other people who are also retreating, but then also coming together to eat.
Kind of like a monastic. It's kind of like a monastic reality almost. Yeah.
There's so much ministry that goes on around that table. It's unbelievable. You'll have people that, we always say it's a dinner hour, and we'll get up and start cleaning things up. But if ministry's happening, you can stay there. But if you want to go hang out with God, you can hang out with God. And we've gone to church sometimes and come back from church an hour and a half later, and people still sit around the table, and they're praying for each other. They're exchanging contact information. It seems like God arranges theme weeks too. You'll have somebody that's just lost a child and somebody else that's been through that, and and it's just all these people ministering to each other and things that we couldn't orchestrate. So we say that we feed the body, God feeds the soul, and we see that happen around that table.
It's good, and we're grateful for those sort of things. Chuck, if people were, who knows where people are, as we have various listeners that are all over the place, if people are looking for a retreat, a retreat center or an opportunity that is near them, are there some things that they should look for? Maybe some questions that they should think about. I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but things they might want to ask about a retreat center to get a better sense of, is this a place that will be helpful for what I want to accomplish? Like, how can they kind of search that out?
You'd want to be real specific on the wording you look up. There's a lot of retreat centers that put themselves out as spiritual retreat centers, but it's a whole different focus. They're taking you into New Age stuff. They're taking you into, all kinds of weird stuff. So I'd want to make sure it's a Christian-based retreat center. I'd want to make sure that it's well-rated and that has good reviews. We come up pretty high on the ratings because we're on some very reputable lists, like Christianity Today has us listed as a resource for pastors. Lifeway Resources has us listed. So you can start doing some searches like that, and you can see the ones that are rated well and it's well spoken of by reputable places. And so I think that's what you want to look for.
That's good. Yeah. Always helps. A little bit of research will go a long way to help kind of guarantee that you have a good, meaningful experience.
Well, and I think, too, from just what I've heard talking to you, lots of people are referring their friends to it. So, like, we've had this where, like, someone goes and then they tell this person and then this person and this person. So, like, I've heard from you lots of times where you're like, yeah, like, this person came, but, their friends 3 times down, friends removed, are telling people about it and coming to.
And that's, we used to, when we first got there, we started giving comp stays out to people that came. We'd say, who's your spiritual director, or who's your soul care guy at church, and that would give you a complimentary stay. And they were our best salesmen because they experienced a great experience. They're giving them this thing that says it was worth X amount of dollars. And then that leadership person would come and say, wow, we can bring this team and that team. And we had like 95% turnover. We haven't had to do that in 7 years, I don't think. We and it is to people telling people. We had one guy just a couple weeks ago say, your name of your organization has come up 12 times in the last 2 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
From different people.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so he said, I figured I better check this out before God makes me go there.
Absolutely. Well, and we'll be sure, obviously, because they're at 316. Why not 365.25? Basically, we'll make sure that you guys, all of our listeners, have access to the contact information and all of that for their ministry.
Absolutely. So. Those will be in our show notes. But if you want to tell us your website right now, go ahead.
It's www.rest.ministries.org.
Yeah, and worth every moment that you can spend there. I'm looking forward to, like I said, to getting down there. And I should just say, for those that are listening, if you have not taken the time to look into scheduling a retreat for yourself, if you are uneasy about the idea, or if you are, you can call Chuck and say, I'm scared about this.
Absolutely.
I don't know what to do. I feel all weird. And I know that you can have the conversation and help give you some perspective on it. But I think, I just feel like your story is the story of so many who were pushing, achieving, and there's like something is clearly still missing. And, a little bit of time away, unplugging, can yield, I think you'd agree with me, can yield just such massive benefits for an individual or for a couple or even a group. Andy, your mom and dad have led, back in the day, group retreats for us, and it's like we had just, breakthroughs, just really good relational breakthroughs. And not that it's about efficiency, but you'd be surprised what happens in the course of a couple of days of just being intentional.
Yep.
It's been my experience. So,
well, we want to thank you for coming on and just reminding us of the importance of resting and retreating, especially anybody, but especially as guys who run wild. Not run wild. I didn't mean that, but who run ragged because we're trying to do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So we definitely appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah. And one last thing, Becca just got me a shirt a while back that says in big letters, Jesus took naps, be like Jesus.
That's right.
And it says the Mark 4:38. I figure if it's good enough for Jesus, we ought to try it too.
Amen and amen.
Well, before we let you go, we are going to do one last thing.
Now it's time for the Dudes and Dads Pop Quiz.
So those of you who have never joined us, this is the time where Joel and I just pepper our guest with our guest with random questions that have nothing to do with the topic we were talking about, but we want to get to know our guest better. And even my dad, I want to get to know him better. So I'm going to ask him some tough questions.
I'm waiting for you to throw some fastballs, some high inside heat, as we say in baseball.
So, but you can go first, though.
Okay, great. Because we made the joke about the mean 3-bean casserole. Chuck, what is your favorite dish to prepare?
I think right now chicken marsala.
Oh, fancy.
That's good. I think I've even had that at your place before. So my question is going to be, what is your favorite place to take your wife on a date?
The Brazilian steakhouse was pretty top notch.
Yes.
It's all around food here. He said.
Yes, excellent. I'm noticing
theme
that.
going.
Excellent. Chuck, what's your favorite thing you've read in the last year?
It comes back to the Bible. I read it every time in a different version, so it speaks to me.
Okay.
Yeah. So
different Bible version reading plans. That's a nugget of gold right there.
Yeah, good tip. What was your very first vehicle?
Chevy Bel Air.
Ooh.
Yeah. It was my grandpa's car. It was a real chick magnet.
That's nice.
That's how I got Becca.
Yeah, that's how I got.
And then took her out on your motorcycle.
Yep, I did. Yep.
So good. Let's see here, Chuck. What? If you, every once in a while, Andy, I have these ideas for new ones. I'm going to try, and I think it's fun that I'm going to try this on your dad too.
Yes,
is the first one. Chuck, if you were any spice in the spice rack, what spice would you be?
Got to be garlic. It's my go-to. It's in
yes.
about everything.
That's good.
All right. You got me. You threw me off, Joel. I just kind of.
I know. I put a new one in there.
I've got nothing to follow up with. It's just like so much going on. Okay. Favorite music artist?
Glenn Kaiser.
All right. Who is
a blues Christian artist.
Glenn Kaiser. Got to look that one up. Let's see here. Chuck, is there some what's the most dangerous thing you ever did while being a father?
Probably White River rafting.
Okay. What river were you rafting upon?
I don't even remember. It was on a wilderness trip. I was in Pennsylvania.
Oh, so we went. I was on the Ohio Pile River.
That was it.
Yes, south of Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Yes, I've been on that one, and I nearly died.
Yeah, the kid next to me almost did.
There's several F4s along the trip. Some pretty serious things. You have to have a legit guide with you. Jackie and I went together, and she hated me after that trip. We almost
was it a date?
We had been dating, and things were not great at the time. And apparently, if you throw the stress in of a very serious whitewater rafting,
it's
incident,
not good on a relationship.
Apparently, it really challenges it. Yeah.
All right. Okay, my last question is going to be: if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you want to go that you've not been yet?
Well, we had a trip scheduled to Austria.
Oh,
yeah, it was a 10th year at this location and 17th year in ministry, and we were going to have a sabbatical there for over 2 months, and it was supposed to go, and then COVID hit.
Darn you, COVID!
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And we were going to then go to Venice, Italy, and do a food tour.
Back to food.
My goodness, that sounds amazing. Well, for my final question, I'm going to ask, what is there are many things that you could have in this list, but what is the thing that you were most proud of your son for?
Being strong-willed.
That's true.
And funneling it in the proper direction.
That's beautiful.
I mean, this is a kid that was in high school, and he shaved a cross in the back of his hair. And this is before it was cool to do things with hair. And he was a walking witness for God, and was wearing it on the back of his head.
Oh, strong-willed Andrew.
And you'll find more probably about that strong-willedness on our post episode that we're sharing with our Patreons.
Good plug.
If you want to hear that. But we do want to thank you for driving all this way and coming into studio tonight with us. We really appreciate you being on the show. So thanks again for hanging out with us tonight.
It's great to be here.
And as always, you can hit us up over at Dudes and Dads Podcast at gmail.com. We love those emails. Or you can, just send us your reviews, your thoughts. Yeah, review the show. Give some stars. Say
and
like and share.
Write it up. Write it up what you think of the show
Love
on
it.
iTunes or Google Podcasts.
Yeah, and all that stuff. It helps people find us on the Great Wide Web. So, guys, until next time, we love you. We're grateful for you. Grace and peace.